The Big Press Podcast.
I love everybody in this room. Great job. We got another one to do it. Let's get ourselves in the 5 and 7 conversation.
I don't know how good the sound that was, but that was post-game locker room with the UNM football team. Danny Gonzalez and head into Fresno and beat Fresno State 25-17. We have not done a podcast kind of after a football game this year, like a breaking news, stop what you're doing type deal. We're doing it today. My name's Ryan Tamori, and I'm joined as always by a Lobo fan since 1970 and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs, Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how are you?
Doing good, Ryan. Big win last night. Looking forward to talking about it.
And kind of, I can always do the glass breaking. Joining us from Northern California, impromptu again, who we hope to incorporate much more into this podcast. One, Mr. Rick Thompson, two-time state offensive lineman in the state of New Mexico for our St. Pius Sartans. I don't think anybody still knows what the hell a Sartan is. And played basketball for Damian Segura at St. Pius. And he's very knowledgeable with X's and O's when it comes to this shit. So, Mr. Thompson, how are you doing?
I'm doing good tomorrow. Big day for football in the state of New Mexico with both universities with double-digit, upsets, So good. I'm doing good and fired up about the football team here.
Perfect. I think the first thing I'll start with, and as always, I give my opinion. I was shocked. We've had head coach Danny Gonzalez on this show. I absolutely like talking to him, and I've, this little bit of a relationship that we've built up with him this year doing this podcast. It's been great. I think he's a really nice guy. I go back to Ed Johnson, who I worked with, Easy Ed Johnson, who I worked back with at the Albuquerque Journal, who was assistant sports editor that I was there. He talked about, oh my goodness, Ed, I'm losing it. Coach in the early 90s, was it not Joe Lee Dunn? I'm making that up. That's another name. But the really nice guy, couldn't win football games, so they got rid of him, and I think they went to Dennis Francione.
It was Mike Shepard.
Mike Shepard, that's it. Mike Shepard. Heard nothing but good things about him, and just couldn't win football games. And I think UNM got beat by Fresno like 94-17 during that period. And I even heard, I think, stories that you know what, I'm not going to go there. But anyway, I don't know. We like Danny. He's great, but I just felt like the doomsday clock was ticking, and you have back-to-back bad losses like that. Every loss they had was double digits. It just didn't look good. I was at Boise last week. UNLV was bad, although UNLV is a very good team. It's crazy how, and I think saw it last night. I saw it on Twitter, especially if you're in the Mountain Time Zone, because the game ended at about 12:30, and the amount of people that were on our Twitter, which is very cool. Winning cures all. And the way they did it and how they did it, and we'll get into that. But I think for the moment, and I'll pose this question to both of you, is, Ed, I'll start with you. Does it save Danny for next year?
You and I were texting back and forth about that last night. They hadn't beat Fresno State in 29 years. You mentioned the 94-17 loss. I remember that well. We haven't had much success. I don't remember. I to be honest, the way the season had gone, I didn't think there was a chance they could beat them. I was watching. They started out well. Hopkins hit a big throw to Jeremiah Hickson, and then all of a sudden the penalties started rolling in. So the start wasn't great, but with that win there, I think it does. I think too, though, next Friday against Utah State at University Stadium, if there's a double-digit loss, that kind of takes you back a little bit. But I think the feel good about the offensive line, who's most of those guys are coming back next year. Devin Dampier, a strike, a dart. I think it does. I think it does. But I say that with an asterisk, depending on what happens next Friday. But I think for the moment, I think it does. I do.
Rick, as a fellow UNM alumni as well, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the possibility of him coming back?
Yeah, I think the seat is pretty hot for him. As we know, this game might have saved him. But if we look at the details of the game, it really wasn't that different, other than that they shut down Fresno State in the second half. They still had over 100 yards of penalties. They have no discipline there. They lead the entire country in penalty yards. So I think Ed's right. It depends. This doesn't really mean much if they don't do anything next week, if it's not a competitive game, for that game. So I think it does save him for the time being. And I think the team's behind him, they're still playing hard. So you can see that everyone's bought into what he's brought, even though they're having a tough season. So I would agree. He is, looking good for right now.
He's good friends with Blake Anderson, who's the head coach at Utah State. They're 2 years removed. I think, 2021, they won the Mountain West title. They got hot and they won I don't think it was the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Yeah, I think it was the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl at the time. They won that. And I'll just say this, they might not have gone 6-6, but if they beat Utah State, he would have somehow been able to figure out a 5-7 season, which I think probably says a lot. One of the one of the strong points all season we haven't had in forever is this gentleman whose nickname is Bill or Little Bill from a cartoon that was made by Bill Cosby when Richard and I were kids, on Nick Jr., Jacory Croskey-Merritt, who is having himself a year. Here's the go-ahead touchdown last night.
On the sideline, New Mexico trying to take the lead in this one. They go to Croskey-Merritt, and he dances into the end zone, and the Lobos take the lead.
That was too easy. That was just too easy.
And it did look easy. Fresno State didn't look like they wanted to. I use this a lot. Fresno State looked like they did not want to be there. Jacory Croskey-Merritt, or as I like to say, JCM instead of Bill. No disrespect to his nickname. 204 yards. It was the 15th 200-yard game in school history and the 14th most in a rushing game. I think he's up to 16 touchdowns now, which is 2 behind Dontrell Moore's single season record. And man, he runs hard. And I'll be honest, I think he looks like I'm choosing my words carefully. And again, I always mention on this podcast how I'm like negative Nancy. He looks like somebody that could be on an NFL roster. I'm not saying playing Sunday. I'm just saying he looks like he could get in a year or two. If I think he can come back in 2 years, he's somebody that would probably be for competing for a spot on an NFL roster. He's dynamic. It's kind of frustrating this year to go from the horrendous offensive line play of last year to the defense this year. And I know they lost guys and it's young, it's freshmen and sophomore that haven't had a lot of action. But man, with that offensive line, and I think Ed, you mentioned it, they all come back. Man, I don't know. He's just a dynamic player, and he was a man on a mission last night. And it's been quite some time since I think we've seen anything like that, maybe since obviously that 2015 season, 2016 season with Lamar Jordan, and what Bob Davie was able to do here. But Rick, you played offensive line. My first question to you is, and I know I'm thinking, I don't know, like Kevin Gonzalez popped in my mind because he ran like a insane person when we were in high school. Maybe I'm remembering that incorrectly, but what is it like to block for somebody like that? And what did you see the Lobos doing last night that just, how they were able to, if I can get the question out, how they were able to run the ball over this Fresno State defense?
Right. First off, Kevin Gonzalez was a dog. I'm sure he delivered more concussions than anyone in high school while running the football. I do know a lot about O-line play, and one thing that I think you have to keep in mind with the Lobos is they're usually undersized on the O-line. And I worked for Lobo Sports Properties for 4 to 5 years, and I was on the field in the Loxley era and a few years after that. And just being on the field before the game, looking at the size of the linemen, usually from one team, and then looking to the Lobos, it always struck me as they were always overmatched size-wise. And when I was watching the replay here last night, it looks like, I haven't watched every game this year, but it looks like we have some more size, at least on the offensive line now. And while these guys aren't always blowing guys off the ball, a big part of O-line play is being in the right position, right? You don't have to blow someone off the ball if you're pulling around to kick out a defensive end. A lot of times it's just getting in the way. And when you have a guy like Croskey-Merritt, he's making guys miss in the hole. So even though the O-line was opening a hole, a lot of times there was somebody still there, and Merritt is such a dynamic back. He's making a move in that space and is still able to break it out. But I was really impressed with the O-line. I mean, 528 yards of offense, 345 on the ground for 6.8 yards per rush. That's huge. Croskey-Merritt averaged, I don't know, I was almost 7 yards a carry himself, and Dampierre had 45 yards. So I think once you start running the ball that much, it allows you to run that play action, suck up those linebackers and D-backs who have to take their eyes off the receiver for a minute or tight end. And it allowed them to hit some passes. In the second half, though, they didn't really hit as many passes other than that bomb. So I'd like to see them incorporate some more play action over the middle when you're running the ball that great. But O-line was outstanding last night.
It's kind of like playing Madden. They ran 16 or 17 straight rushing plays. And I was kind of like, who cares? Like, if it's for this football team, if it's working, the hell with it. Just keep doing it. It was awesome to see.
And let me tell you, if you're an O-lineman and you're doing that to a team, it's the best feeling in the world. They can even know what play you're running. At St. Pius, we maybe had 5 to 10 run plays. The other team scouted us. They know what's coming. But when you execute it, similar to the way the Lobos are, there's nothing a defense can do. And it was impressive.
And your thoughts on just the offensive. Ed, are you there?
Rick is the offensive lineman expert, and he knows about that. I thought Coach Gonzalez had mentioned that Bill, as he calls him, had been banged up, dinged up, and I thought last night was the healthiest version we've seen of Bill. Second level runs, battering rams. There's battering ram runs. There was a couple on the sideline. He put his head down and knocked guys back. So I think this was the healthiest version of Bill we've seen. The other thing was Anthony Henry came in and got 65 yards on 11 carries, 5.9 an average. The time of possession, New Mexico 40 minutes and 41 seconds compared to Fresno State 15 minutes and 34 seconds. So when you're running the ball like that, as Rick said, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And the second level blocks, and I think Rick makes a great point. The Lobo offensive line has always been in the games, as Rick will say, he's two-time offensive player of the year, offensive lineman of the year. He knows the game is won in the trenches. And New Mexico's offensive line last year was not good. And Coach Gonzalez alluded to that, but he kept saying this, Ryan, you and I have been to the press conferences. We've got a swing in our hammer. We're stronger. I just didn't see it consistently with the running game, but we saw a little bit of a sample of what it could be like when Bill is healthy, and then Henry comes in, and then Dampier, he's a threat to run. But I thought last night was the healthiest version of Bill that we had seen all season long, and the running game overpowered Fresno State. You mentioned, Ryan, I remember watching on TV last night, 16 straight runs, which is imposing your will on the defense. That's imposing. You know what's coming, just like Rick said when he played at Pius. They had some plays that they ran, and people knew they were coming, and they still couldn't stop it. And that was the way I felt with New Mexico last night with the running game. I felt they were dominant in the trenches. And I guess the other thing is, though, you asked about Coach Gonzalez, and I got to say, I got to temper my enthusiasm. I remember being excited about the Hawaii game, and then there's 2 straight bad losses. So as excited as I am about what they showed last night, we have to remember this team has been very consistently inconsistent all season long. So I need to remember that myself. I'm a Lobo fan, and sometimes I get caught up in the weeds like, oh, man, wow, everything's great. We're going to be good for next year. And I have to remember how this team has performed all season long, consistently inconsistent. But last night, the running game dominated.
I'm looking at the team stat. I lost my train of thought because there's so many things. I think that's funny because like when we're like Monday morning quarterbacking here, and I don't know. I didn't expect us, and I don't think many people in Albuquerque expected us to be sitting here talking like this. Number of things. This throws a monkey wrench in the Mountain West Conference race. So Fresno State's now 4-3 in the conference. I think they've played their way out of possibly being in the Mountain West Conference championship game. I think it's going to probably be UNLV. I think it's a 3-way tie between UNLV, Boise State, and Air Force. And UNLV if UNLV didn't drop a pass to Fresno State, they might be in the running for a New Year's Six, and there's still the possibility they might be the last highest ranked team in the country. And Ricky White, the wide receiver there, is phenomenal. It just felt like, and it didn't even, again, an X's and O's things with football, like getting a team off the field on 3rd down. I mean, we all know that here. One of the things that we've seen all year was this secondary not be able to stop big plays. They did that last night, and this is one of the biggest things that's glaring to me stat-wise, is that Fresno State was 4 of 13 on 3rd down. They went for it on 4th down. Conversion rate was 1 of 1 there. I don't know. I mean, I'm just big on getting teams off the field on 3rd down. That's so important. I think it's probably the most important thing next to shooting yourself in the foot. And UNM still had 11 penalties last night for 97 yards. Rick, I'll head over to you. What, I mean, you can see it, how demoralizing it is when you're on the football field to get penalty after penalty like that.
They're drive killers, right? And it's not just the penalties, it's the type of penalties. I mean, for God's sakes, they got called offsides on a field goal attempt on offense. I don't know how that's possible. Everyone's watching the ball, and they jumped offsides and had to kick the first field goal again. So they're lucky they made it the second time around. So it's demoralizing. Obviously the longer penalties, the holdings, pass interference are the ones that really kill the drive. But regardless of what they are, they all add up. We're the most penalized team in the country. Again, I think we've said it 3 times, but I don't know how that happens. And even in this game, it hasn't changed the entire season, right? Because this game, we still had over 100 yards of penalties, 2 turnovers. So I think we're still quite lucky to come out of this. Fresno State basically didn't show up in the second half. Almost every drive, like you said, was a 3 and out, and the Lobos got off the field. And I don't know how they won the game because of those penalty stats, to be honest.
Well, it was one of the first things all year where UNM had like 170 some yards of offense late in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter. And I was like, wait, what? Like UNM shut Fresno State's offense down. They went with Logan Fife, who played here last year. When oh goodness, his name is escaping me. He's a Northern California guy. He got drafted by the Saints. He's like a third string or practice squad player for the New Orleans Saints. But Mikey Keene, I think, had been hurt. He was their number one guy. Then Logan Fife came in, and I don't know. They're just. I don't think we're taking anything away from what Danny Gonzalez and the Lobos did last night, because I mean they just didn't like catch them off guard. Other than the penalties, they kind of caught them off guard and kind of stepped on their throat a little bit. But Ed, go ahead, Rick.
I just wanted to ask you guys, I haven't watched the games as closely as the one last night. Have they been making any explosive plays like they had last night? Because, Little Bill had a 50-yard run, and then that last pass play that ended the game, which was a miracle. Those two plays for me really changed, the outcome of the game. Have they had any home run balls like that this year?
They did against Hawaii. Croskey-Merritt had a good run against A&M. Tennessee Tech was one thing. They didn't really have any explosive plays against New Mexico State. If I remember correctly, everything that New Mexico State did kind of kept them in front of them. And then New Mexico State, Pavia, he had a big pass play. Sorry, I was thinking about him urinating on the midfield at the practice facility. And knowing now that you're on, Rick, knowing that he went to St. Pius, quality education there. Glad his parents spent money for a year there. They had some Wyoming. They had some plays. They gave up plays. I mean, God, I'm going to sound like Danny here, but it's like so many of the little things. But I think why they are 4-7 is because of penalties. And they had opening up at Boise State. I mean, Devin Dampier went right down the field to open the game, like first 2 or 3 drives. And then a fumble it just sucked the life out of them like it did against New Mexico State. No, they've, Hawaii, they did that. They've shown they did in the second half against Nevada. It wasn't like last year where they just were stagnant on offense for 60 minutes. I mean, this team is much more entertaining. If you're going to take a step back and not be like an alma mater, and this team was much more exciting to watch, and it gave us much more to talk about than I think I don't know, it was 50-50. Speaking of which, Rick, here is that play where the two guys, Fox Sports, Devin Dampier was supposed to be a run, and he had dropped the ball and he threw it. And here's the play.
3rd and 12. Drops the snap, has to just launch it and get it out of here. Finds his man in the end zone. Unbelievable. Caleb Medford, the safety valve. Devin Dampier, the freshman, drops the snap and turns water into wine for the touchdown.
I mean, that was just pure luck, but the Lobos hadn't had that all year. They've had plays like that go against them.
Drops the snap, has to just launch it and get it out of here. Finds his man in the end zone. Unbelievable. Caleb Medford, the safety valve. Devin Dampier, the freshman, drops the snap and turns water into wine for the touchdown.
That was one of those plays where I thought, like, they're going to win now. Like, yeah, it's just kind of how I felt. Rick, I'll let Ed answer this question because he mentioned it a lot preseason training camp and towards the beginning of the year. Ed, remember you kept saying that Danny had said that his team had, what was it, a sledgehammer or a swing in their hammer.
Right.
I kind of thought last night they showed that, especially defensively. And there were a few times late where Fresno, I think they were just like, what are we doing here? they showed a lot of different formation, like different blitzes and different defensive packages that I hadn't seen all year. There was one towards the end of the game. They didn't have anybody lined up. They did like an amoeba thing and they blitzed. And I think the quarterback got hit or he threw an incomplete pass, but this might be where you're going. I can have Ed answer this better. And what Danny said, that swinging that hammer, I know I'm repeating it. Against Hawaii and definitely last night, I would think that was the case. And Ed, you got to watch the whole game. I mean, I thought, and secondly, I thought defensively, obviously they looked outstanding.
They made some plays when they needed to. I think one of the things this team does not do, they don't rush the passer well. They don't sack the quarterback. They did last night. They don't get a lot of interceptions. I don't know if they did, but they had the Fresno State quarterback under duress all night long. And Rick will tell you this as an offensive lineman, when they say swinging your hammer and you're imposing your physical will on a defensive front like New Mexico did last night, I think that's one of the things that we can finally say, because Coach Gonzalez kept saying that. We've got to swing in our hammer. We're stronger. We're this, we're that. We saw it a couple of games, but not consistently. Last night, they ran the ball down Fresno State's throats. They did. Look at the time of possession. Look at the play, yards per play. New Mexico had 7.3 yards per play over Fresno State, 4.5. So I think last night, that's your answer to that question, Ryan. Did they have a swing in their hammer last night and show physical strength that we've been waiting to see? They did.
Here's another topic of I think interest. And when you have a win like this, which we really haven't done this at all this year with football. We've had Ned on, and Ned had said play defense and special teams. And I'm sure he's adding don't commit penalties to that. Is that there is talent on this team. And I think people on our Twitter last night were trying to, like maybe bring back Danny because players will come back. And Ed, I'll start with you on this one. Is Devin Dampier is clearly a talented, athletic young man. Caleb Medford, there's some of these wide receivers, Jacory Croskey-Merritt, Andrew Henry. I thought Caleb Medford played outstanding last night, but I don't know. It might be going on a decade, but I can't remember the last time. Maybe 2007 with that team with Rocky and Marcus Smith and the two wide receivers. And then I think Rodney Ferguson and Donovan Portery. I can't remember ever seeing a Lobo team with this much talent offensively. And the one of the announcers last night said that Devin Dampier there's the possibility that he might be the greatest Lobo, which is saying, for Urlacher, I guess per se, but that he might be the most prestigious, not just UNM football player ever, if he stays here, and quarterback ever. I don't know what your thoughts on that, Ed.
I go back to, like you mentioned, 1970, Stoney Case, Steve Meyer. Steve Meyer got drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, Stoney Case by Arizona. Casey Kelly was a game manager. I'm trying to think of Lamar Jordan, a good option quarterback. But that throw that you mentioned, that it was kind of luck, right? He fumbled it. That kid threw a dart, man. And I told you, I texted you, what a throw. That again, luck. There's sure, we can say that, but a lot of those plays this season have gone against New Mexico. Finally, one goes their way. That takes talent to make that throw. And that kid there, hopefully, again, we hope he stays. That's the key. He's got a lot of talent. If he stays, and Coach Gonzalez's regime continues, I'm excited for that future, because this kid is going to be very special. Can he be one of the best quarterbacks New Mexico's had? I absolutely think that. New Mexico hasn't had a lot of great quarterbacks, some very good ones, great ones. We mentioned a couple that got drafted by the pros. Stoney Case, I think, saw some time. Graham Lee, I don't know if you remember Graham Lee, took New Mexico to a bowl game, did have a cup of coffee with the pros, tried out. But I'm trying to think of quarterbacks that were really superlative. And this kid here, with that throw last night, again, I know it's luck, but he threw that on a rope, man. He threw that on a rope and he fumbled the snap. So I think there's reason for optimism. If he does come back, I'd be excited. So I think that's one of the reasons you asked about Coach Gonzalez. But remember, though, Friday's a key, too, though, because if they backslide and start and Rick makes a good point about the penalties. They're mind-boggling. 11 for 97 last night? 11 for 90, yeah, 11 for 97.
97.
So, yes, and to answer your question, Ryan, I think Devin Dampier, if he stays around here, has a chance to be definitely one of the best or the best quarterback New Mexico's ever had.
Rick, I posed the same question to you with just the talent you've seen, at least last night offensively. We didn't get that last year or the year before.
Yeah, even last week, I think he got some time, right? If not played the whole game, and or a few weeks ago, if that was not it. But I've been impressed. He can move with his feet. I think in college, you need to have a mobile quarterback to be successful. He can run the read option. Obviously, he was doing that throughout the game yesterday, but Ed's making a good point. His accuracy seems to be pretty good from what I've seen so far. And I just think it must be really hard to be a wide receiver in this offense, because you might not run a pass play for 25 straight plays, right? And then all of a sudden you got to be ready to catch the ball and be, ready to run a good clean route instead of blocking. So I think they're going to, if they use him correctly, the offense could be dangerous, because it looks like they have some talent at wide receiver. I don't know who else coming back. But if they're able to mix in more of the pass game, those wide receivers' confidence will go up, and they won't be having to just block downfield the whole game like they were doing last night, because it looks like Dampier can sling it as well.
Something else that hasn't been hit on him a lot, and I'm so glad I'm not on live radio. It's a podcast. Let me retract my thoughts here. Something that we haven't mentioned here, and he came on our show, Ed, was Glover Quinn. Cornerback Dante Martin, he's a senior. He's probably, with Jarek Reed, he's probably worth being on an NFL roster or getting a shot in camp. He was credited with one pass breakup last night, and that was kind of the big talk about with this team, and especially with sports information director Frank Mercogliano. He was credited with one pass breakup last night with 31 for his career, which tied Glover Quinn's record for all time at UNM. Danny's mentioned this. Nobody ever throws his way. He is and he's somebody that stayed here and stuck here and played here. I give Dante Martin a lot of, credit for sticking it here. And Danny had said it, that he just was like, nobody wants to throw to him. And he wasn't sure if he was going to break that pass breakup. And Danny had mentioned last night, he got flagged for pass interference, which he didn't think was pass interference. He never commits that. And he just thought it was a bad call. But yeah, it's just guys like that. I applaud with everything that's been bad here, and, not winning. I'm sure to go out, 5-7 on the year, that's probably a key thing. And another thing both of you had mentioned was that, and I didn't queue up the highlight, was on the interception to, I think the linebacker's name's Bailey. I met him in Vegas for Mountain West Conference football media days. When he intercepted Dylan Hopkins' pass, and I think DJ Washington ran him down, or Andrew Erickson ran him down. DJ Washington recovered the fumble. He ran him down and hit it. That normally doesn't happen. That's kind of like a game killer, where when he threw the pick and he started to return it, I was like, here we go again. But it was a heads up play. And I think that's a key thing that shows that this team hasn't given up and quit. And Ed, for somebody who's watched Lobo football for a lot more years than Rick and I have, you have to appreciate that, right?
I think you mentioned Mike Shepard. Mike Shepard had offenses that could score points with anybody in the WAC back at that time, but his defense was like a sieve. They couldn't stop anybody. So I think that's a good point, Ryan. They haven't quit. I think one of the things, though, that is maddening to me is they had, Rick asked about if they've had explosive plays. They have. Dylan Hopkins has made some great throws, and then they'll get in the red zone or, big gain, and then all of a sudden, holding, offensive legal procedure, something moves them back. They're behind the chains. So I think the talent is there. There's no doubt about it. Hopkins has been a very good quarterback when he's in the lineup. He got hurt last night, hurt his wrist. But I think we've seen the receivers. Coach Gonzalez said he had more playmakers. Jeremiah Hickson's been one. Medford, we've seen better playmaking from the wide receivers. They've gotten the tight ends involved a little bit more. Bill has been a very good back when he's healthy. Anthony Henry has been good. So Sherrod White's been hurt. So as far as the skill positions go, and then the offensive line has been much better. So the talent is definitely there. But the penalties, and Rick knows more than you and I, Ryan, will kill you, and they've had a lot of them. And so that needs to, if Coach Gonzalez is going to return, a lot of those things need to be fixed, even for next Friday. Here I am, so optimistic. I'm, happy as heck as a Lobo fan. And then you think, hey, that Friday, let's see how they finish out. Then they've been consistently inconsistent. That's why they're 4-7 all season long. But back to your question, the talent is definitely there. That's what's made me look like, gosh, man, they just can't put together 2 or 3 consecutive good games. That's been the thing that's been has driven me crazy.
I would say not being able to put together back-to-back consistent games, and Danny's talked about it, was a full 60 minutes. That's very frustrating. So I got a million, because my background and being, this isn't an arrogant comment or an ego thing, being like a sports reporter in New Mexico. I don't know how many people sent this to me this morning. And Rick, you were one of them. Eric sent it to our group chat. Another friend of mine sent it to Scott Forrester, sent it to myself and our buddy Mike, and then a couple other people that not at the top of my head I can't think of that sent it to me. It got deleted, and then at Cerveza Lobo. Hey, I love that. Lobo Gabe, Lobo Loco, Cerveza Lobo. I make fun of anybody's Twitter handle, but I like all the people that follow us. I appreciate you. I'm not going to go there either. I'm having a night. But his handle is Cerveza Lobo. Let's stop keeping tabs here is his name, I guess. It's the Fresno State rant, the guy from last night who ranted and called us a Division 5 school. I couldn't find it, and here it is in all its glory. I think there is some cursing in it. I couldn't find it. I didn't have time to do it. But Rick, I'm definitely going to get your thoughts on this after I play it. Again, I apologize for the cursing on that. I didn't realize it was that much cursing. However, I thought that was great. It was a great rant. The guy had a hearty mustache. I mean, Fresno's had a winning program. I could understand the frustration. I probably, I probably wouldn't take this loss well. I mean, I don't even know how Auburn fans feeling right now if we're talking about football in the state of New Mexico. But on a scale of 1 to 100, Rick, where do you rate that rant? Because for Mountain West and Fresno State, that's top notch in my book.
Yeah, I didn't know people were so passionate about Fresno State football, but when you play yourself out of being able to have a chance at the championship and you do it under those circumstances and look so bad, I would be pretty upset as well. So I rate that rant pretty high. What I'm not big on, though, is all these people doing like setup rants these days. It looks like too many people are not, might be fake fans, but I think this guy was a real fan. You can tell the passion. I rated a 90 out of 100. It's all good.
I appreciate it. I don't know if you guys heard that. I know, Rick, I know we were playing it, but you sent it to me. I don't know. It was fantastic. And somebody had retweeted it last night. But like I said, it was just deleted and I just happened to see it as I was looking for it. Cerveza Lobo, thank you. Chef's kiss. I never do that. I know that's corny. I have to there. Because we don't ever see that with Lobo football. I love that guy. I'm glad he did that. And his I'm here to be objective, but he's calling us a Division 5 school. Well, it looks like he had a Fresno State Walmart jersey on, but I still liked you because that was a fantastic rant. Ed, what I wanted to get your opinion on was, because we haven't touched on it, and we are primarily a UNM, University of New Mexico podcast. We talk a lot about the conference, and we've tried to incorporate more New Mexico State in this, and we haven't done that. We did preview their season. They are 9-3. They could possibly be 10-3. They are in the Conference USA championship game. Rocky Long once said that, maybe there's a miracle worker needed here at UNM. They got one down in Las Cruces. And from a gambling aspect, I've won like 7 or 8 weeks in a row on New Mexico State, and I took them money line yesterday. I never do that. It just, when they were up 7-0, I was just like, this feels very funny. So I did take it. But we've talked a lot about them, man, and I've watched them this year. They are fun to watch. I did not think Diego Pavio was going to be a good quarterback. He is almost like Brett Favre-esque, where you will get he's the old gunslinger, and you will get either feast or famine. He's been more feast. He has played, they got votes in the top 25. His numbers are up there. They're phenomenal. I have to look at, they showed it on a graphic on a game like a week or two ago, but I think he's one of like 7 quarterbacks in the country that are 1,500 yards passing and 500 rushing. They rolled into Auburn and beat them 31-10. I don't care that Auburn's having a down year. Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia may have gotten Hugh Freeze fired in his first year at Auburn. They take that very seriously there. With my rant on that, they're fun to watch. I don't know if they win Conference USA if they get up here to Albuquerque. I know that that's a possibility that they could come up here. I think that stadium would be sold out. I think it would be a very, very good thing for New Mexico State. But just your thoughts, and I'll get to Rick. I know you probably haven't watched them as much, but obviously you see they're 9-3. You're probably like, holy hell, that never happens. But Ed, just your thoughts on what Jerry Kill has done down at New Mexico State.
Well, I'm no fan of the crimson and white. I'm a Lobo, no fan of theirs at all. But we have to give them credit. What Jerry Kill has done there is, as we say in Spanish, un milagro, a miracle. That program was one of the worst in the country. They've had 2 straight winning seasons, beating Auburn. And not only did they beat them, they physically dominated Auburn. And when I looked at that, they showed Diego Pavia, he threw an interception. Then he slammed that guy. The wrestler from Volcano Vista slammed that guy. And so they've taken on the personality of that guy. He's made some great plays. He's a physical guy, likes to hit, likes to get hit. And Jerry Kill, what can you say about Jerry Kill? They've had a lot of coaches down there. They tried Hal Mummy, right? They tried the air raid with Hal Mummy. They've tried some coaches. I'm amazed at the job he's done. Amazed. Now, I was saying this to somebody last night. What if another school comes with a big check for him? Because if you did that at New Mexico State, well, where else could you do it? But Coach Kill's health isn't the best. I know that. He had to leave Minnesota because of that. But what he's done down there, unbelievable. God, I can't believe it. 9-3, beating Auburn. One of my Aggie friends asked me today what I thought, and I can't repeat what I said to him, but you got to give him credit. you have to give them credit. They're where we want to be. The Lobos, they've changed their football culture down there. And Jerry Kill is a miracle worker. That's all I could say. Diego Pavia, man. Yeah, I don't know if, we asked Coach Gonzalez earlier this season, you and I, Ryan, asked him, do you regret not recruiting Diego Pavia? And, he gave the politically correct answer. And he's got Devin Dampier. I'm sure he feels good about his future. But Diego Pavia, man, wow, that kid is a player. There's no doubt about it.
They do have this is a team that they blew the opening game to UMass, which I thought, this team's not going to be that good. And then it was like, they threw the ball over the field over the Western Illinois, which is a great name, Leathernecks. They lost to Liberty and they lost to Hawaii 20-17 in, what is it? Hawaii's in Honolulu, I think. I'm going to be wrong on that. Somebody's going to correct me. They had a 17-3 lead in that game. They lost 20-17. And then they've ripped off, and Jeff Simietta and JJ Buck talk about this all the time on the morning show on 610, the opening drive. Like, okay, yeah, they haven't played anybody, but at UNM, we would take this. And it's not just the fact that they've escaped. They've gotten down to some teams and they've fought back and blown people out. To Western Kentucky, I think they were down to Louisiana Tech and they fought back. But these are their wins since losing to Hawaii. They beat FIU 34-17. Sam Houston, who's terrible, 27-13. They beat UTEP 28-7. They survived Louisiana Tech 27-24, but they were down like 14-3. Minute Tennessee State, they beat 13-7. Western Kentucky, they rebounded. They beat them 38-29, and then they beat Auburn 31-10. They get Rich Rod in Jacksonville State this weekend, and then they have their date set up with a rematch with Liberty at Liberty for the Conference USA Championship on December 1st at 5:00. I think that is a Friday evening. I know where I'll be at that time. But Rick, with what you've seen out of what you've just seen out in Mexico State and what you've heard, just your thoughts.
My only thoughts are Diego Pavia is the man. Seems like he's already becoming a legend in Las Cruces with the actions he's taking on and off the field. If you follow the Barstool Sports account for New Mexico State, it's pretty entertaining, the things they do with Pavia. They're already making T-shirts. There's already lots of merch out there. So I'm impressed by their record. I hope they can finish these last two games off and have, that tough rematch with Liberty. And as you mentioned, I would kill for this type of season. No pun intended on their coach to have this at UNM. I can't remember the last time we had a winning season. You guys can refresh my memory, but kudos to New Mexico State and the program they're building. And like Ed's saying, you just hope that the coach doesn't leave. But from what I've seen, he's got a tattoo of the Aggie on his body. Doesn't look like he wants to leave anytime soon. So congrats to them.
You probably get into like that old man status and you're like, I don't care. I don't care where I live. And I don't know. He seems like it. The one thing he seems like he kind of fits Las Cruces. The one thing I will say is when they beat Louisiana Tech, they had 2 personal foul penalties at the end of the game and it didn't cost them anything. But man, Jerry Kill, the defense, it was a defensive back and he got in his face and CBS Sports cut to it. And he had his finger in the kid's face. And I thought, man, that's old school stuff right there. I absolutely loved it. It wouldn't be fitting if we didn't end this podcast on a little bit of basketball. I just wanted to let you guys know that Xavier beat St. Mary's tonight, 66-49. So that UNM loss is not looking so hot right now. And again, they were picked to win the West Coast Conference.
San Diego State mashed St. Mary's 2 nights ago.
Yes, they did on Friday night. Yeah, I think we mentioned that on Saturday morning. And that's another thing about the Mountain West. I follow on Twitter the guys that are the Sickos Committee. It's funny. It's like a guy who it's like staring through a window. It's a cartoon, and they're college football sick. I don't know. It's nothing like super like disgusting. It's just all the crazy stuff that happens in college basketball and college football, and they posted the wheel. All the Mountain West teams had beaten each other, so go figure. To Rick Thompson, hey man, we definitely want to, like I was telling you, we want to incorporate you more. And this was you broke that down better than I could. I just, dish out useless historical facts, but man, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys. Let me know when you need some useless sports knowledge, and I'm here on call. Let me know. Thank you.
Oh no, anytime. And a Lobo fan since 1970 and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. I almost said Broncos there. I'm sorry. I always want to say Broncos. The Western New Mexico Mustangs, Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, I'll be talking to you probably tomorrow again.
Yeah, tomorrow at 12. We got Coach Pace on from Western New Mexico Women. So yes, sir, we will be talking.
And they're 3-0.
Yeah, 4-0 now. 4-0, which is for Western New Mexico Women. It's been a long time since they've had a start like that. So we're pretty excited. We'll see what happens.
And Eric Malton, who actually was directing and running like a board for this. So, hey, my name's Ryan Tamori. We appreciate you. And I don't even think I mentioned it. UNM football ends their season Friday, Black Friday, November 24th at 1:30 p.m. at University Stadium against Utah State. I didn't think we'd be celebrating a 5-7 season, but we'll be doing that now. And I always want to say, we appreciate those that follow us on Twitter, that listen. Any feedback, I'm here to take it. We're trying to do the best that we can. And when I had a radio show on 610, and I'm sure Ed and Eric would agree with this just isn't our show. This is a Lobo Nation. I can't believe I'm saying this. This is for the UNM community, and we love any involvement. But we appreciate those that support us. So thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving. And on behalf of four of us, happy Thanksgiving. And thanks for listening.